Hi everybody, welcome to another Spectrum Economics video. Today we're going to be looking at puzzles again. This time it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more along the game theory side of things rather than the reverse engineering type of stuff we did with the first two puzzle videos. But hopefully you'll find it interesting. I will give you a demonstration of what I mean with the first puzzle. So let's look at a sample question here. Imagine you are the manager of a football team. There is 10 minutes remaining in the game. Your team is trailing by 1 goal. Do you play more aggressively now, or do you continue to play using your existing strategy? You can see the table below has the percentage, the probability of scoring a certain number of goals. So if you continue with the normal strategy, there's a 70% chance of scoring no goals, 24% chance of scoring 1, 6% chance of scoring 2. And the same for conceding, it's also 70%, 24%, and 6%. But if you look at the aggressive strategy, you can see there's a much higher chance of scoring 1 and 2 goals. But on the downside, there's also a much higher chance of conceding. In fact, the chances of conceding are considerably higher. So you've got, for example, a 30% chance of conceding 2 goals, whereas only a 25% chance of scoring. And the same for 1. You have a 35% chance of scoring 1 goal and a 40% chance of conceding 1 goal. And for scoring 0 goals, there's a 40% chance of that happening, and there's a 30% chance of conceding 0 goals. So with those two in mind, is it worth adopting the aggressive strategy, or is it worth sticking with the normal strategy? So that's what we're going to investigate now. In order to find out which is the best approach, we need to calculate the probability that the strategy will actually produce a draw or a victory. So as you can see here, we've got the probability using the normal strategy. As you can see, we've got situation where you score 1 goal and concede none, that will produce a draw. Score 2 goals and concede 1 will produce a draw. On a scenario of scoring 2 goals and conceding none will produce a win. So you can see with the normal strategy, there's only a 4.2 chance of winning. And then for a chance of drawing, you just add the 16.8% to the 1.44, so we're looking at about an 18% chance of a draw. If you went with the more aggressive strategy, you can see there is a 7.5% chance of scoring 2 goals and conceding none. That would give you the victory. And there's a 10.5% chance of scoring 1 and conceding none, thus getting a draw. And a 10% chance of scoring 2 and conceding 1, also getting a draw. So with a more aggressive strategy, there's a higher chance of obtaining a win, 7.5 versus 4.2, and also a higher chance of getting a draw as well, of about 20.5 compared to about 18%. So on this basis, you can see that, in fact, the aggressive strategy, even though it has the higher chance of conceding goals, it actually has a higher chance of obtaining either a win or a draw from the scenario, and therefore would be the more favorable choice. The results can be summarized in the following table. So you can see with the normal strategy, there's a 4% chance of winning, 18% chance of drawing, and 78% chance of losing. Whereas the aggressive strategy, you've got an 8% chance of winning, a 21% chance of drawing, I think it's a 20.5 but rounded up to 21%, and only a 72% chance of losing. So the aggressive strategy is the better strategy in this case, as can be shown by this table, and is supported by the previous calculations that I showed you. So what if the scores are tied instead of trailing? Should a more aggressive strategy be adopted? As you can see, the aggressive strategy still gives you a better chance of winning, 28%, but the chances of losing are 39%, whereas a normal strategy, chances of winning are 22% and chances of losing are also 22%. So most likely, if the game was still tied, you'd probably still keep with the normal strategy, but it also depends on the nature of the game and the nature of the tournament. If, for example, a win was definitely required to get through to the next round, then an aggressive strategy still may be the preferable strategy. But in this case, we'd say probably go with the normal strategy if this was asked just as a question. But again, circumstances should dictate which strategy you would use. So let's now take a look at question 1. So as before, you're still a manager of a football team. There's still 10 minutes remaining in the game. Your team is still trailing by 1 goal. Do you play more aggressively now, or do you continue to play using existing strategy? So let's just take a look at the odds. here. So what have we got here? So percentage chance with the normal strategy of scoring 0 goals is 60%. Chance of 1 goal is 32. Chance of 2 goals is 8%. And the same for conceding. So like with the sample question I gave just now, it seems like the fairly even chances for both sides in terms of opportunities of scoring. What about the aggressive strategy? You can see here, chances of scoring 2 goals is up to 20%, 1 goal is 45%, and 0 is just 35%. But the chances of conceding, though, are very high. So there's a 50% chance of conceding 2 goals, 35% chance of 1 goal, and 15% of 0 goals. So I suggest that you pause the video here, try and calculate which strategy is going to be the better strategy in this case. Is it going to be aggressive again, or do you think keeping with the normal strategy may actually be better? Yep, so just pause for a moment. So let's now take a look at question 2. So now what if there is 15 minutes remaining in the game and the probabilities are based on scoring and or conceding between 0 and 3 goals? As previous it was what? Was 0 to 2 goals. So now we've added an extra goal. Do you play more aggressively now, or do you still continue using your existing or your normal strategy? So I suggest you pause the video, think about it for a little bit, and we'll get to the answers after the next question. So for question 3, we've turned the tables a little bit now. So now we're assuming that your team is winning by a goal. So should you now adopt a more defensive strategy or continue with the normal strategy? So this is like going the other way now. So is it better to be, continue the way you're playing before, or is it better now to go more defensive and see if, the defensive strategy gives you a higher chance of preventing the other team from scoring? As you can see from the table, we've got the probabilities down there. So I give you a few moments, or I suggest you pause the video to think about it, and then we'll cover that off. This is the last question, so we'll be going to the answers after this question. Let's look at the answer to question 1 now. So if the normal strategy or the current strategy is continued, there's a 5% chance of winning, a 22% chance of a draw, and a 73% chance of losing. If the more aggressive strategy is adopted, there is actually only a 3% chance of winning, a 14% chance of drawing, and an 83% chance of losing. So you can see in this scenario, it's actually better just to remain with the same strategy. So it obviously indicates that this team is not particularly good at playing aggressive, and by being more aggressive, it seems to be far more likely to fall further behind and actually make up the difference and end up winning the game. So it all comes down to those percentages and how they're played out, and probably also how much time you have left as well. So if we reduced it to 5 minutes left in the game, there's a possibility these answers could still be different. Let's now take a look at the second question. You can see here the normal strategy gives you a 3.36% chance of winning, 13.31% chance of drawing, and an 83.33% chance of losing. Whereas the aggressive strategy in this case seems to be the better strategy, with almost double the chance of winning at around 6.68%, a better chance of drawing as well at over 17%, and only a 75 to 76% chance of losing. So in this case, question 2 is somewhat similar to the sample question that we ran through. As I say, remember, you just got to calculate the percentage chance that if you're a goal down, you can overcome them by 2 goals for the win, or bring it level with either a 1-0 over the last or 2-1 over that last period. Let's now take a look at our final question. So this was reversed. So this is if you're leading by a goal, what was the best strategy to adopt? So if you just play with the normal strategy, there'd be a 78% chance of winning, 19% chance of drawing, and a 4% chance of losing. If a defensive strategy was adopted, we now have an 89% chance of winning, a 10% chance of a draw, and only a 1% chance of a loss. So a defensive strategy appears to be the better option if you're ahead by a goal, for this particular team that is, given the likelihood of scoring goals. So how about if we look at it if the game is tied? What happens if you play a more defensive strategy? So the normal strategy, you've got a 22% chance of winning and losing, and a 56% chance of a draw. So a draw is still pretty high. Whereas if we have a defensive strategy, the chances of losing are greatly reduced down to 11%. The chances of winning are almost non-existent at only 6%, but a very high chance of a draw. So you'd normally say probably the normal strategy, like Like I mentioned before, though, it comes down to circumstances. If, for example, all is required is a draw, and it doesn't matter whether it's a win or draw at that stage of the tournament, then a defensive strategy may actually still be the best strategy. But for this exercise, we would say go with the normal strategy based on the much higher chance of winning, and there are no other existing conditions required for the tournament. So I've now reached the end of this video. If you liked it, remember to click the like button. And if you want to see more videos similar to this, click the subscribe button. I've also got a number of other videos as well available. So that's relating to stuff like cost-benefit analysis, game theory, microeconomics, a little bit of macroeconomics, and also what I'm working on with my book, Vegan Economics. So if any of that interests you, remember to hit the subscribe button, and thank you for listening.